Well, a warm welcome from me. I'm so glad to have a few moments to bring you some fascinating information. I'm going to have to break it up into several YouTubes because there's just too much to share. In previous YouTube, I explained to you why I felt like this dream phenomena was happening, and I was getting, I guess, newsworthy things maybe a couple days before they occurred. So now I have a backlog. You see, I am a dreamer, not a cinematographer, but I do have beautiful dreams. And I outlined for you in previous YouTubes why this was happening, and you can do it too. It's, I'm no Edgar Casey. I'm just little old me, and I began listening to some lectures from some disciples of Yogananda, and I would listen to them at night and fall asleep listening to them. The next day, I would wake up with flashes of the news that was going to happen in the next couple days. And everything from earthquakes to elections to the tragic occurrences with border conflicts, caged children, child trafficking. One that is shocking, I did it a while back on a series called Dr. Death, and they did find a lot of graves in Texas of immigrants that were basically killed and buried, and is done legally. This is our country now. However, we're going to have some changes, and and navigating these tricky waters is just that. It will have to be light-footed, carry a big stick, and speak softly. First, since some of it is just depressing, alarming, and I want to bring you the good news first. So I'm going to go to something that's very exciting on the astrological scene, and so hold on one second. Let me draw up the Yugas. This comes to us through Yogananda's teacher, his guru, that sent him to America, knowing that we had entered a new age. It has been called the age of Aquarius. There is, and there are some wonderful links I'm going to send you off to at the bottom. There'll be some comments, and I'll send you some links to some people that are very well schooled and well educated authors that can explain the yugas. But I'll give you skinny first. You see, we have just entered a new age. This is why Yogananda came to our country in 1920 to herald in the Dwapara Yuga age is here. This is the age we've just left. It's called the Kali. Kali is upside down, but we're going to show a little bit more. Kali age. This is the Dark Ages. Each one of these ages they've been knowing about this for about, 24,000 years. The Egyptians knew it, and so did Atlanteans, and that knowledge is coming back to us now. You see, we have not been ascending. We have a linear view, a Darwinian view of how we have evolved, and Darwin puts us back here, that we started here. Well, that's not true. But he could only work on the evidence that he had, that we came out of the swamps and progressed from there, and that we had in our minds that we were on a linear progression. It was just the opposite. We have been digressing. We have been sliding down into the Dark Ages and regressing. And the ancients knew that. And there's a lot of evidence about this. This is not a whimsical theory. This has been proven. The Kali Yuga is Kali. Kali is the era, and Yuga is a time frame. This is actually called the Great Year by Plato. This has been known for a while. While knowledge has been suppressed during the Dark Ages, we've been digressing from we up here, 24. Now let me see, about 12,000 years ago. This was the Golden Age. This was the age of Adam and Eve, and we did live in a garden of beauty and knowledge. And actually, Edgar Casey talked about this as well. He said that there once was a time that we could come and go into the human form at will. We could leave our body, call it outer body travel, and come back and know things. We just knew things. We just lived in a garden. We didn't have to have protective shelters. It was, the earth gave freely of itself, and we remember that. We have a racial history of remembering this golden age, and we have written fables about it. But we started to digress. We went down from the golden age, the Satya Yuga. You're going to being familiar with these terms is not that complicated. A descending age that is less evolved is the Treta Yuga, or Silver Age. And these names kind of come from the Greeks originally. And then the Hindu names Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapar Yuga. We have passed through this. The Bronze Age was a little less evolved and descending in knowledge and fear into religious superstition, into the Dark Ages. And if you were to really read a book about what went on in the Dark Ages, it's almost, I don't even want to share it. I don't even want to think about it. All I know is it's over. But this was an age of immense darkness. The pyramids come from this age, and the pyramids were built to try to keep the light on. They knew, well, actually the Great Pyramids were built in here. The Great Flood happened about here, but the pyramids were built about here, and they were trying to preserve the light in the world, knowing that mankind was going into this horrible darkness, really murder, cannibalism, rampant, horrible. So we've been through this, the Dark Ages. There's also the Iron Age, with silver, bronze, iron. This is an age when the only thing we can understand is matter. What's right in front of us, if we can feel it and touch it, if it's outside of the material, we can't understand it. And now we're starting to come into a new age, and this is the descending cycle. We've come down. What a bad trip it's been. Thousands of years of descent, as opposed to the Darwinian view of progression of the species. Instead, it's in a cycle. We're coming out, and I'll show you some actual figures that back this up. We just entered the Bronze Age. Hallelujah. We were in it here. We regressed into darkness, and now we're starting to come into an age. Well, let's put it this way: it's not dark. We're in, and it gets better. No matter what, it gets better. And there's cosmological reasons why, and it involves Sirius, or the dog star, and great cycles of our solar system. And I want to send you off. If you're curious, I'll put the links down there. But let me show you a little bit more about this, because it has everything to do with what is happening now politically and climate-wise. And as you know, I have continued to receive these dreams. I think that it's just everybody's going to be doing this, and this type of knowledge will be known to more people. And because I am a disciple of Yogananda's lineage, and I'm listening to the lectures at night, somehow that knowledge is coming through to me because of the higher vibration of the guru. And I'm bringing this to you because you're seeing this happening in your life right now with the climate. I mean, it really looks like we're in for the end of our planet, basically, with the climate changes, political problems that are horrible, and it's so depressing. However, the good news is it's like the darkness before the storm. This is where we are now. Uh, this was actually made in 2014. You must know that this is what the Mayans were talking about. They had logged a lot of the past history, and this was actually the beginning. The Mayan calendar is not the end, it's really just the beginning, but we have to begin a new age. Will we be able to do it with grace and ascend into these enlightened eras here? And see, everything is looking up. However, with each one of these ages, which are very well demarcated in time span, there has always been a big change, like the flood, a great flood, or the sinking of Atlantis. And with that type of thing, you're like, oh my God, this is happening right now. And yes, it is. And I actually got to communicate with some experts in this area. And I said, I just asked an obvious question. We're changing eras. There's always a big change, like, ice ages, and floods, and things like that. Are we headed for that now? And the one or two people that I talked to just via email, was a privilege to talk to them. And I said, is that going to happen again? And they said, the choice is ours. As we were facing climate change, floods, and sinking of Atlantis, ice ages, in these eras, as we descended in our conscious level and our ability to understand things outside of the material, because our whole problem is our fear of mortality. We just can't understand anything past our own physical lifespan, which makes us become crazy because we're frightened. We're like frightened little kids, but we're starting to change. People are moving away from religious superstition, but they're also gaining in their spirituality. This is why Yogananda he came in 1920, and it was the actual time of the 1900s was the actual demarcation of the end of the Kali age, and we began this new cycle, and Yogananda was sent by great gurus to usher in knowledge to help us evolve. Evolution is a possibility here as opposed to devolution. Now, what happens here is, in talking to these great scholars, I said, are we just going to crash and burn here with our dear planet? And they said, the problem is we have no history. That has happened maybe 48,000 years ago is possible. But when we go into the Kali ages, we become so fearful. We're fearful of knowledge. We burn books. We kill We kill enlightened people, kill each other just because we're scared. We're afraid of mortality. We're behaving like that now. You see, we're becoming overcrowded, and we're with the same things is happening to us as happens to rats. If you put a lot of rats and you overcrowd them in a cage, they just start killing each other. Unfortunately, we're overpopulated, and everybody knows it, and our planet is suffering. Are we going to have a cataclysmic event? We don't know. Our history doesn't go back that far. Unfortunately, we had the knowledge, but it was destroyed during these terrible dark ages. But let me show you some evidence of progression. I have to be sure to give you my normal warning that sometimes my camera cuts out, and if it does, just another one will I just come back with a part 2 to finish the process, because we've got a lot of things to go over. We have democratic socialism coming in. That was one of the visions, a Bernie Sanders type vision. Also, a Stalinistic period coming in. And all these things they're happening right in the news, and the child trafficking, at the children getting lost, at the migrant children, and of course awful things are happening as well. A lot of migrant graves have been discovered along the Texas border, which I foretold a couple months ago, and that's quite awful. We're supposed to be evolving. There's a chance we might just pull that off. But let me show you why I know we're coming into the new age. You don't have to look up at the sky and trust Vedic Hindi astrologers. You can look right at our most recent history. You can see here, when you look at, this is the time of Christ, and this is how the progression of the AD period after Christ, after death. We have average capita income in the world, and I tried to look up how they calculated this, because monetary standards have changed since year one in the Christian calendar. Here we have average income per capita in the world. What do you think of this? We're going along here century after century, and believe me, it's been this way since about maybe 2000 BC, when the Great Pyramids were, they were in effect, they had built these magnificent structures to keep light in the consciousness of man, and didn't work too good. We just began killing each other and whatever. God sends a savior, and we kill him. But the cool thing is, in some of my previous videos, I pointed out that Jesus was a guru. He studied in the Himalayas with the Indian saints, and he didn't die on the cross. You see, a guru can enter a breathless state. They can cease to breathe, but they're not dead. And in the Himalayas and the Hindi sages, they can do this. I'm actually studying a type of Yogananda's teachings, and to enlighten yourself, you enter a breathless state, and it's not that unusual. I haven't got to levitating yet. I will let you know, because I don't have enough money to get airfare to India, so I'm going to have to count on the levitation. Now look at this time period here. We're up to right around here is when we started to come into the Bronze Age, Dry Yuga, and it's Yuga, Y-U-G-A, is the time, how they measure the time in great units. It's called the Great Year. Look at 1900. What do you think about this? Do you think things started improving drastically? When you look at a graph of inventions as well, not only our standards of living, we went from living like animals to living, we began increasing these. Our knowledge has exploded. And the Dry Yuga is a time of electricity. Also, we're moving into um, telepathic communication. We're not there yet. In many of my YouTubes, we talked about the importance of tuning up, and tuning in, because we're not going to be speaking. We're going to start speaking telepathically. We're doing it now. So now you've seen how things have improved, starting with, if you go here to where the Mayan calendar uh, ends, but perhaps is beginning. Look at this. They knew this was coming. This shows people living in absolute poverty worldwide versus people not in, the blue line is people not in absolute poverty. And once again, you see this change. You have the poverty people is huge, but right around, well, they show it to be around 1970. It was when you start to see a big change, and things are happening pretty quickly. People are getting, and you know that everything was changing, communications, electricity. Whereas 100 years before that, they had horses and they didn't have electricity. And you know that you're living right in the middle of this great age, the Dry Yuga, and you're seeing the changes. Imagine where we're going to be 100 years from now. But we want to get to that point, which is why I'm getting these dreams, and I can share with you, especially politically, and our climate can be changed, but not easily. And all this has been foretold. This slide is a little harder to read because of all the small print, but a lot has been happening since the 1900s. And you've got to think, right around 1700, that's when we have Galileo, followed by Newton, followed by Tesla, Edison, and it explodes. It is called the era of electricity. And we're going to be communicating non-verbally. We're doing it now. I sure am in my dreams at night. I think it's because of my connection, my close connection with these enlightened gurus. And I won't go over all the things. It's quite exciting. All the amazing, astounding things that have happened in these last, let's say, 150 years. It's insane. Look at this is beginning in, I think this is the 1400s, and it goes on to here. So these facts alone will tell you that there's something going on. Is it good or is it bad? Do we have to suffer the climate changes and death and destruction for growth, you see? And the Plutonian theory, the Pluto theory, it's a planet. It, the phoenix is a symbol of that, where the phoenix is totally annihilated. It burns down to the ground like a volcano, and it is something that is new and born from the ashes. Now, here's what got me interested in this, since I've been an astrologer all of my adult life. I'm studying astrology, and I'm reading the mythological theories behind the personalities of the planets, like Neptune and Pluto and and the ancients knew about these things, these planets that were not discovered. They started to be discovered in around 1850. Well, a lot of things started then, and we gradually became aware of these planets. How come people before the Greeks knew about these planets? How did they see them? How did they know? And they gave us legends and lore to help us understand stories about Neptune, um, King of the Ocean, um, Pluto, death, destruction, rebirth. Uranus is kind of the age we're in now, or Uranian age, why they call it the age of Aquarius. Um, they made these legends so that they would stay in our racial consciousness, and they're to teach us what these things mean because we live through these ages. So that was always my question when I was studying astrology back in the day, when I had to learn everything through books and going outside with a telescope, to now I find it on the internet. It's this night and day. Maybe, but my question was, if if the ancients knew about the planets, these planets that were just recently discovered, how can that be? And that's the question. They knew a lot. We have been in a descending era, not ascending, and that's changed. We have now begun an upswing of more enlightened knowledge. This is by Asa Steinmetz. He has written books, and he also did a fabulous YouTube on the Yugas, and I'll put the link below to, he has lectures, he has books. If you want, this is the most fascinating things you're ever going to, this is the most interesting thing you're going to learn in your whole life, because it tells you where we've been and where we're going. The most exciting thing is, as we have descended down through the dry Yuga age, you see, knowledge was being lost by the bucketful, by the century, and everything that we're starting to learn now, was known here. It's like it's not, as we start to come to a parallel point, like say, 2030 will be about here. Everything that we knew at that corresponding time is becoming known to us. There's been some recent discoveries at, I can't quite pronounce it. I don't want to mess up the name, but it is a fabulous site that's just been found in Turkey, and it shows advanced civilization that shows that people 20,000 years ago knew more than we did. And as that knowledge was lost bit by bit by bit, the corresponding upswing, it comes back to us. Like if the Göbekli Tepe digs in Turkey shows an advanced civilization that it shows that we have been de-evolving. But as these things are known, each little tick of time, more things come. What we forgot, we are starting to remember, and it corresponds with the time. What Krishna knew, what Jesus knew, and like Jesus died, let's see, right about here. What he knew, we're starting to become aware of it. Like we've become aware that Jesus was a guru, and he did go back to India, and he was teaching us, trying to teach us some things, and he didn't die on the cross. He didn't have to. He could do things that we're going to be able to do. This knowledge is coming back to us, and we have to use it. We will use it wisely. So here we have this age, as the knowledge is lost, and it goes against the Dark Ages, religious superstition, um, absolutely horrendous living conditions where they didn't get plumbing in, say, London until like the 1700s. They had it back here. They had it back here. They're finding all kinds of digs and archaeological things that they had um, dentistry, brain surgery, they had plumbing. We think we're so evolved. Haha. We just came into an age where we're getting just, it was just our great grandparents were just getting things like plumbing. And now, and we're starting to communicate different. This is the electrical age, Tripura Yuga. And that's a fascinating thing. It's like we just we just happen to remember automatically. And even as Casey said, that there once was a time he was asked what was it like during the Golden Age. Well, see, we have memories of the Garden of Eden, and Edgar Casey said that there once was a time where we could go in and out of the body at will. It was like uh, easy as a dream. But as we descended, we became more stuck and more stuck in the body. Then, till all we knew, we forgot anything spiritual, and all we knew was the physical world, and anything outside of the physical world was um, a fearful thing. Um, I have a brother-in-law who is a born-again Christian. He doesn't even believe in dreams. He thinks dreams are of the devil. So that shows where we're coming from. The cool thing is, just because we're in this age of communication of all sorts, you don't have to be in this age if you associate mentally with people and reading and medications of a higher age, you will start to actually experience these higher golden ages, and it's happening now. So this brings us up to the current where we are now. We live in a time when we put little children in cages, and madmen have access to nuclear weapons. I had some dreams about Putin and Bernie Sanders. This is a dream. Actually, honest to God, about 2 weeks ago, I woke up and there was a orb in bed with me, like floating right beside me, and I it was just felt that like such a light and beautiful vibration, and when I tuned into it, I just said, "Who are you?" You know, it was about 2 feet in diameter. It was opalescent. I was kind of, you could see through it, but it had a little shine to it. It was floating. If you were to blow a great big bubble like you do with children's toys, that would be what it was. It was gorgeous. And I said, "Who are you?" And the feeling I got was, it felt like the vibration of a fairy or a butterfly, something so beautiful. Now, this is not me, but this is a picture of orbs, and it's not coming across too well in this picture. Let me find another one. This is the way it felt. This is not me. It's a picture of a friend outside. Orbs have been described as something that cameras can pick up, but people can't. But I have a surprise for you. I had the feeling of this beautiful orb kind of floating off to my left side, and its message was, when I said, "Who are you?" It was, beauty is as beauty does. So I guess you might want to think, have beautiful thoughts. Think like a butterfly. Think like a fairy. Have that light touch. It was a momentary wisp of beauty, like a flower or a sunset. It only happened that one time, but I can assume that it had something to do with increased meditations through Yogananda's Ananda lectures and listening to them as I sleep. And you can have nicer dreams. However, I have been seeing the future. So let's see what else he got. I have like two minutes left on my videotape. I got a vision like Vladimir Lenin, and he had something to do with Bernie Sanders. I got a quick flash, and I'll show you what I saw. First of all, I love Bernie, and I'm going to just tell you what visions have come in reference to him. I saw a quick flash of the Russian Revolution of 1917, and that was a big year of change for us. And this is a picture from Dr. Zhivago, and in it, when I saw Bernie Sanders' face, I also saw this young man's face, who was the actor, and he was a idealistic socialist who wanted to change things, get rid of the czars and the oppressed people, and bring a better life to his people. And I saw him. This is like a shot out of the movie. I saw this young man, fall down to the ground. He was shot, and all the vision showed was him in this blood in the snow, and his glasses, and somebody stepping on them. So you knew he was dead. And it went into, I knew that it had something to do with Bernie Sanders, that Bernie Sanders is going to herald in a change. Here's Bernie right here. And I knew they had something to do with each other. That somehow, Bernie Sanders is like 72 or 7, a little over that. So he's on in years to be spearheading a great socialistic change. But he has great ideas. I woke up one morning, this is right after the orb experience, and I saw a quick flash how they happened. I knew something had to do with a socialistic philosophical change, and the bad part was something happened to the idealism that Bernie Sanders and the young man that portrayed Lenin in Dr. Zhivago, they went together. And Lenin wasn't such a bad fellow. He had great ideas. He truly cared for his people, but he trusted the wrong people, and Stalin was the result. After Lenin died, and I would have to wonder how Lenin died with having someone in power like Stalin. And Stalin, of course, was amazingly ruthless, unbelievable as far as just killing people and grabbing power. And I saw that could happen with Bernie Sanders, that he was going to harrow in some young, idealistic, beautifully brilliant people. And with that great movement, which is very reasonable, we're talking democratic socialism like they have in Denmark and Sweden, and seriously, those are the countries. I don't know what people are doing trying to come here, because we're just a mess at this point. They should be going to Sweden and Norway. But let me show you what I got. First, I woke up and I saw a donkey kicking his heels. Hold on one second. Here was my donkey, and when I saw the donkey, and I saw confetti coming down around him, and he was happy, and it was red, white, and silver confetti, and I knew something had happened with the Democratic Party that was very, very positive. And let me tell you what happened the next day. First of all, I see the donkey. I know it has to do with something happening with the Democratic Party. probably the kind of democratic socialistic movement. It's not bad. We're associating socialism with Russia. Russia never pulled it off, but the Northern Europe nations like Norway and Sweden and all those fabulous countries that how and now Canada more and more they have they're making us look like a third world country, and they're doing it right. So I went online. Oh, let me see. Yeah, I saw the donkey dancing and I got an M, and I didn't know what the M stood for. Was it a person? And I have a feeling it was the millennials. Um, So, what happens? Are we going to have beautiful, idealistic people come in and kind of along the philosophies of Bernie Sanders, and can it be kept out of the hands of greedy people that they don't care about the populace, as has been demonstrated? But I didn't think there was any elections that day. And look what popped up in the news the next day. Something about primaries in New York City, New York, the state of New York, and there are primaries. And I stamp these things on psychic predictions for the world, because these things are coming so fast. It'll be like 2 or 3 days later it happens, and it's been earthquakes, it's been elections, and people getting arrested, and immigrants being killed along the border, and that we're going to get into in the next YouTube. So this is time stamped June 26th, and I wrote, this popped up on my Facebook page, and it said, "Are you ready to vote election day in New York?" I didn't know that. So I keep watching. I want to see what's going to happen. And what do we have? The happy donkey. Something's up with this. And I know it has something to do with Bernie Sanders. So I didn't know there was elections on the East Coast and in other places. I live in California, so I wasn't paying attention. So we have a young woman by the name of Ocasio Cortez. What an exciting woman. She is 28, and she's running on a Democratic Socialist ticket. Nobody saw this coming except the millennials. They all turned out to vote for her, and they did they checked in with the polls, and yes, 19 and 20-year-olds were voting, and they want a change. So our millennial kids are going to save us, but we have to keep idealism out of the hands of the greedy people, that the capitalists. We're capitalists. Is that a good thing? That's the question. Here is, these are the most exciting pictures. Let's see if we can get a good shot of this. Here we have, it's not coming up good, pictures of Miss Ortega. When she nobody saw this happening. She hold on one second. My camera's just not picking this up for some reason. I'm going to have to call it quits. This is Miss Ocasio Cortez. I can't get her name right. She was on the Stephen Colbert News the next day, I think the 26th or 27th. This is her looking at the election results. Where was she? At her campaign headquarters at a pool hall in the Bronx. So this is grassroots city, and you look at the people in the picture, they're young and they're ready for a change. They're tired. They don't want to be part of a government that locks up little kids in cages. So change is coming with Democratic Party. Has to do with Bernie Sanders is the inspiration. Will he turn into what happened with Lenin, who was an idealist, who had good ideas, and he was Lenin just ran all over him, and we have the Communist Party today. And they have yet, they only want power. We all know that. So don't confuse the Democratic Socialist Party with communism. You know, it's called read a book. The things I have coming up, especially the migrants, the grave sites of migrants that are killed on the border, and they have a bounty on their head. And like Indians did 150 years ago, they had bounties on their head, especially in Washington State. If you turn, this is part of our history. If you turned in some scalps of Indians, you got a certain amount of money. That's how the West was won in some areas. Washington State, it was the most brutal. It's happening now, and it's happening at our borders. Is there a way to come into this new age with some enlightenment, knowledge, and make it work out so that our planet doesn't self-destruct? So stay tuned, because I want to show you the death, I call it Death Valley, with the discovery of the immigrants. And do understand that a couple months ago, I had a YouTube called Dr. Death, and that this was going to start happening with vigilantes. So we're going to look at these two sides of the good news and the bad news, and my dreams keep coming. It's very exciting. You can be you are a beautiful dreamer too. If you put nothing but inspirational knowledge in your head, it's coming from the golden ages, and that's why Yogananda came to the West to get us started with changing things. Can we be a part of this new exciting age? Stay tuned, folks. Also, if you do not subscribe, I have no way to notify you when I post the new things coming up. The climate changes, earthquakes, positive changes, the new age of Aquarius, and they're coming in a lot, and I want you can do it too. Some of the exercises, you can do it, and we can all be a part of a new beginning. And always, as Yogananda teaches, in everything you do, every step, every thought in your head, every feeling, every vibration, um, every act of kindness or unkindness, are you walking towards God or away from God? Think about that, and how, and look at the beautiful age we're coming into. There are things we must do, and sometimes you might not be able to go out and save the polar bears and the horrible things happening. And I do have some information on global warming and Putin and Trump, and it gets verified. That's the cool thing. It gets verified. That's it. I might be pulling it out of the air, but it will be a couple days, a week later, boom, there it is on the news. So I can put my finger on it. I'm a Capricorn. I guess I'm kind of a Kali girl from the Kali Yuga age. There's a certain part of the Kali Yuga age and Capricorns, they like to be able to touch it, feel it. Is it real? Pulling air stuff out of the air, we want to verify it, and that's what I've been able to do. I want to show you these things. So subscribe so you will be in tune with the things coming up. Think beautiful thoughts. That might be all you have to do. Say kind things. That might be all you have to do. Every thought, every word, every action. Where are you going? Are you going towards God or away from God? Are you operating in your lower chakras or your upper chakras? I have a feeling if you're watching this, you're kind of on the upper vibrations of things. So I love you all. Thank you so much for your views and your subscriptions, and let's do this together.